Hello and welcome back to my potluck wrap-up. So I started this last month. Rather than go through the arduous task of reviewing 25 books at the end of each month, I decided I would mix it up a little bit. I would put all of the titles of books that I read in a jar and or teapot, hence the potluck. I would then pull them out and review them that way, setting myself a limit of 20 minutes to see how many books I can review in 20 minutes. Now, February was a weird month. Did she read any of her TBR books? No. Certainly not the Top Trumps TBR cards. I started all but one and they were all not good. Didn't enjoy any of them. One of them I'm still working on, but it's tedious because I want to be able to just finish one. So I'm not going to give myself a punishment in March. You'll have seen that in the TBR video that I will not be setting myself a punishment because I need to go back and have a look at my TBR cards and think about what my tastes are, because I think I just went for books that were hyped or popular or whatever, or out of my comfort zone. They were just a little bit too out of my comfort zone. Didn't enjoy reading them. So we're now focusing on books that I do actually enjoy. Anyway, I'm wasting time. So I am going to pull some titles out of my pot and then I'm going to review them for you. Now, there are books in here from January as well as Feb. So here's hoping I still remember them. There is one book in particular that I really want to review. So if you see me rushing through these reviews, it's because there's one that I really want to get to, and knowing my luck, that's not going to happen. So we're getting the timer. Okay, so we have the 20 minutes on the timer. I am pressing play or go or whatever it is you say to your timer, and then I'm opening my pot. Okay, the first book I will be reviewing this month is Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid. Not the one I wanted. Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid is a contemporary that looks at the microaggressions experienced by black people in the US. This is about the, what's her name? What is her name? Oh, Amira, of course. So there you go, 1 month later and she can't remember. So Amira is this young black girl who is a nanny for this rich white family, and everyone expects something from her. But it all kind of kicks off when she is nearly arrested for taking a child, which is not hers, to the supermarket because she's babysitting the child. Now I thought it was going to be a kind of the kid gets kidnapped and she gets the blame, mystery, thrillery type thing. So obviously that was not the case. It was really interesting. It very much reminded me of Queenie and the contemporary feel of how their lives are falling apart and they're just trying to deal with all this shit, but they also then have to deal with white people and white people problems. So that was really fascinating. But there is one thing about this book that just fucked me off right at the end. So if you don't want to know how it ends, just skip on to the next review because we're going to be here a while. One of the main characters is this woman called Alex, and she basically, you find out in the middle of the book that she had a white boyfriend at school who was obsessed with the black kids, and he very much fetishized them and looked up to them and thought they were the coolest and stuff like that. But she saw it in a very, very toxic light. Now obviously he didn't, he thought he was just friends with these people. They have sex for the first time because she's got like a house to herself. She came into money because her parents essentially won the lottery, so she wasn't from money. Her parents kind of got this money and just radically started spending it in ridiculous ways, which he viewed as toxic because he didn't know that she'd just come into this money this way. He assumed she came from money. So they were already misunderstanding each other as teenagers. Now, there is a house party that kicks off in her house after these two have had sex, because it always happens after you have sex with someone. That's how conflict works apparently in every novel ever. Tangent. So she basically calls the police to have these kids removed from her house. The problem is the kid that is arrested is black, and after that she gets tarred with the brush of being a massive racist. Her fellow students hate her, her boyfriend dumps her, and as far as she's concerned she can never go back to that place because they all see her as a racist. She does not see herself as a racist. Now, there is a really important element of this, that is she gave a letter to her boyfriend which had the passcode on it so that he could just come into the house because it's a gated community. So she then believes that he must have given that passcode to these kids That's why they turned up. She then hates him for doing that and hates that he got the blame. It makes her the victim. It makes it understandable why she would feel betrayed. She tells all of her friends about it. They're all on her side. It's the cause to the effect of her behaviour throughout the entire book. Right until the very last chapter, where you find out that he never received the letter because she put it in his locker and it fell down to the locker below and was unopened. So he could not have given the passcode to anyone. She had to have given the passcode to someone else, or someone else worked it out, or whatever. Regardless, the boyfriend was not to blame, and yet all of her actions throughout the entire book are fueled by this betrayal, and the betrayal never fucking happened. It was all in her head. She was a unreliable narrator from the start. Now, I don't mind an unreliable narrator, but I kind of went into this thinking, oh, it's going to be a thriller, and then it just feels like a contemporary the whole way through, and I was like, oh, I must have been mistaken. It's a contemporary. And then the last chapter is like, bam, thriller all along. And I was like, no. Thank you, but no. Like, I just wish I'd known going into it that Alex was such an unreliable narrator, because the whole time I get how Amira feels, because she's caught between these two people that she cares about, because she ends up dating the boyfriend who's like 10 years older than her, but like as an adult, and Alex is like, well, he's fetishizing you, he's only dating you because you're black, and when you look at all of his ex-girlfriends are black, and she's like, just let me live my life. And she ends up parting ways from both of them, which is for the best, to be honest, because everyone is toxic. And the whole time he's like, you know, you're making this shit up about me. You don't believe him. You believe that she is the victim and that he's an arsehole because he acts like an arsehole. And then to find out that actually the whole time, So I gave it 4 stars because it was beautifully written. I hated that fucking ending. But anyway, okay, so that's the first one, apparently. Okay. Okay, The Black Kids by Christina Hammond. This was one that I read this month. So, The Black Kids was really, really interesting. It was recommended to me because I really enjoyed The Hate You Give. This is about a young black girl who does something horrible. It's set in 1992. There were LA riots, Black Lives Matter movement before it was Black Lives Matter movement in LA. Fires, shops were raided, people were killed. It was brutal. Could have happened in 2020, to be honest, or 2021. The riots kick off, things are stolen, and a friend of hers turns up at school with brand new trainers, and she starts a rumour that he was part of the riots and he stole the trainers. Now, there's a load of other stuff going on in the background. She's dealing with a sister who got arrested, she's dealing with parents who specifically want a very particular thing for her, and it was very similar to Slay in the fact that whilst her friends expect a certain type of blackness from her and her parents expect another type of blackness from her, and she is a third type of blackness that doesn't seem to fit with either of their expectations of her, and she has that to deal with. It's that kind of conflict. So I found it again really fascinating to see, and again, like Slay, she's quite a passive protagonist, so these things are happening to her and she's experiencing them too. But the difference being that she is the antagonist of her own narrative because she starts the rumour in the first place. So when everyone starts kicking off at her, they're justified. Now, she does have a lot of experience with racism with her friends, and I found that really fucking hard to read because there's all these little moments that lead up to it where you're like, these are not good people, and you're so desperate for their attention. That was really, really hard, but I found it a really, really compelling read. She does get the redemption arc I think is deserved of this, and although it didn't have a happy ending, because how could it with the world that we're currently in, it was a really, really satisfying read. So if you really enjoyed The Hate You Give and Slay, I would definitely recommend this one. I thought it was great. Okay. I did try and pick up the pace so that I can get to the one. I want the one. Please be the one. Please be the one. Oh no, Burnout Survival Guide. Okay, so this is, I'm going to do this as super quick as I physically can because I don't even like... Okay, so this is a survival guide for burnout. It has really great advice in it. It's really, really short. It's very, very illustrated. And basically it just deals with how to deal with stress, but it's practical advice. Now, I really like a self-help book that gives you something specific to work on. I find it really difficult when self-help books just become about themselves, and I'm looking to read more self-help books about business and how I deal with my business throughout 2021. So this was a really great one to start with. I would highly recommend it. And even if you're like, I don't really do yoga and I don't really like meditating and stuff like that, there's all kinds of advice for all kinds of problems within that book, and I found that actually it was quite targeted advice which is impressive considering it spans such a massive topic. So really, I rated that one quite highly. I thought it was really good. I don't know where my hardback copy is, but that one. Okay, did that one in under a minute. Right, okay, come on. Please, just be the one that I want. No, Crown of Midnight by Sarah J Maas. Right author, wrong book. So Crown of Midnight is the second in the Throne of Glass series, and I didn't like it. It wasn't great. The problem I'm having with this series is I read Crescent City first, loved it. Then I read A Court of Thorns and Roses, it was good. Then I read A Court of Mist and Fury, fantastic. Then I read A Court of Wings and Ruin, great, kind of like the first one, not as good as the second one. And then I read the fourth one and it just, oh, so good. Anyway, so Throne of Glass series, you can see where Sarah J Maas has taken the things she liked from that series and put them in her later series, So if you haven't ever read any Sarah J Maas, I would just not recommend that series at all. I would just go to the stuff that she clearly enjoys writing more, and therefore it's more enjoyable. So I'm not going to dig into that one too much. I did it as an audiobook. It was okay. I'm literally only continuing the series because I know that Becca from Becca in the Books will be very disappointed in me if I don't. In fact, I believe the phrase she used was "how dare." But anyway, yeah, so that, it was okay. Wasn't my fave. And I want the one. Are you the one? Are you the one? Are you the one? Oh, no. Right, where's Caraval? Where's Caraval? Okay, I don't know where I've put Caraval now either. Okay, Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I did this as an audiobook over the weekend. I was pleasantly surprised by this. It's a YA about a young girl who is being abused physically, emotionally, and mentally by her dad, who basically just tortures her into doing exactly what he wants. Now, again, I need to discuss a spoiler with you, so if you haven't read Caraval yet, skip on to the next one, because again, we're going to be here a while. Throughout the whole thing, she's trying to find her sister. She's picking up these little clues, she's having little adventures, she's learning to be a badass. In the meantime, she's kind of very reluctant to be there. She is very much the, what's the phrase, when it's the journey that he doesn't want to be on, like a reluctant journey type thing. Anyway, so she doesn't want to be there. The whole time she's learning to be brave, etc. And then at the very end, she loses her sister, and it is through this wish that she brings her sister back, and she learns that, you know, their love is the strongest and no one will ever love her sister like she does, and everything is wonderful, until you realise that her sister planned the entire thing. So it's one of those things where, like, I feel like I need to reread it to go back through and be like, wow, your sister's a dick, because really, what was the point? What was the fucking point? You know, she faked her death so that her dad would stop looking for them and would leave them alone and they could go out and live their lives. I get that. There must have been so many easier ways on a tiny island that your father is the sole controller of that you could have done that. So many ways to do that. I believe that's gaslighting. I'm pretty sure that's gaslighting. I don't have any medical degrees or degrees in psychology or anything like that, so please don't hold me to that, but it feels like if you're persuading someone to think a certain way and bend to your way of perception. So yeah, great storyline, really, really fun, loved all the magic, loved all the whimsy. Can't get over that though. That was something teenager Hannah wouldn't have noticed, but adult Hannah did, so we'll just move on. Okay. Okay, Romanov by Brandy Nadiz. I'm not getting to the one I want. I can tell it's not happening. So, Romanov is an Anastasia Romanov retelling. It looks at the whole Romanov family as they are basically, shortly after they've been arrested, basically, and it's their entire internment. Now, if you were looking for a Fox's Anastasia retelling, this ain't it. This is very much ripped straight out of history books about how they were arrested, where they were taken, and how they ended up, which was fucking brutal. But with like a little bit of magic thrown in that she doesn't use, ever. And then it's kind of a little bit of romance, and then it ends, tragically, twice. So it was a good read. It took me over the weekend. I think I gave it 3 stars. I buddy read this with Carolyn, and I don't think I'd have stuck it out much past that if it wasn't that. Like, I enjoyed it, but I've had such a shit reading month Most of the ones that I've discussed already were from Jan, so it was okay. It was okay. If you like historical fiction with just a little bit of magical realism and just a little sprinkling, you know, a little salt bay of fantasy, then this is for you. But if you were looking for an Anastasia retelling, this is not, as in like the Foxes. This isn't that, which is a shame because I love that. I wasn't in the mood for historical fiction when I picked this up, but I do enjoy historical fiction, and that kind of saw me through. It felt nice, and I liked the dynamic between the sisters. They were great, the parents were lovely, and yeah. But it's fucking sad because the story is sad. The truth of the history is sad. So, that one. Come on. At this rate, if the buzzer goes off, I'm just going to fucking review it anyway, I think. I'm so excited! Okay, so A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. That was probably more excitement than it needed. But anyway, how much time have I got to discuss it? 4 minutes! Okay, so throughout the okay, great start. Throughout the original trilogy, I love Nesta. I find her a really fascinating character. There are very few things I enjoy more than a fucking angry protagonist. And that is what she is. She is raging the whole way through this book, and I lived for it. So, as we've seen in previous books, Nesta is pretty selfish. What I liked in this one is because it's from her perspective, although you see her being selfish, you see her being scared. And you see that actually it's her cowardice that forces her into those really selfish choices. She let Feyre go off, she feels guilty about that, and she is mad at her father. So she's got all those issues to deal with. How does she deal with them? By sexing everything and getting hella drunk. Now, I appreciate that the whole setup for her being stuck in a house with Cassian felt really forced. The idea that she's just kind of like shagging and drinking and stuff like that. Like, you think how Rhysand and Feyre dealt with being tortured for as long as they did. They were given some time, they had a lot of sex with each other, they felt better afterwards. But apparently it's unacceptable when Nesta does it. Maybe I'm missing something, but that felt like a really weird facet. Anyway, so anyway, basically she then starts training with Cassian. I mean, she doesn't, she's really reluctant, but she's forced into this house with Cassian, and she starts hanging out with some priestesses, doing some research, and she learns to be a Valkyrie. Now, I fucking loved that. Rage is complete fuel, it takes you where you need to go, and I just thought, loved it. So, really like that. I really like the fact that she developed her own female friendships with characters that weren't from the original trilogy, so we were given additional characters that actually had their own traumas to experience. The stuff where they climbed the mountain and they all shared their traumas, I nearly wept. I nearly wept. This book is 80% sex, but what it isn't, the other 20% is trauma, so I hope that's how you enjoy your fantasies, because where do I even begin? So I loved Nesta. Cassian quickly became my favourite male of the three. Asriel kind of, he's always had this like chill, quiet vibe, but I guess because I'm not in Rhysand's head, in his head, watching him pine over more, which is kind of like, you've been doing that for 100 years. Anyway, okay, so because so I got Cassian's perspective, and he is also rage fueled, but in a slightly different way. Like, he is on exactly the same path that Nesta is on, just further down the line. So I felt like that was a really nice cyclical structure of them both dealing with their shit. What's really interesting is Rhysand, which is ironic because the story's not really about him. But obviously in the original trilogy, you have him being an arsehole in book 1, so because that's how Feyre sees him. And then you have him being the lover in book 2 and the lover in book 3, and you just see him as this really charming, sarcastic, great character. But when you see him from Nesta's perspective, he's an asshole because she doesn't like him. And I just thought that was so clever, that he's not doing anything out of character, but you almost dislike him for the choices and the way he acts, because Nesta dislikes him for the choices and the way he acts. And I think she very much has this thing with him where she doesn't like being a charity case, and he just wants to gift her stuff. And it's really, really nice to see the way that at the beginning he feels like he's giving her all these things. He's given her somewhere to live because she's Feyre's sister and all this sort of stuff, but she's not family. And then at the end, he gives her the house and it's a gift, but she is family and she accepts it, and she sees that it's not just because she's a charity case, but that's how he says thank you. And I just thought that was really lovely, that even though the two main characters, Feyre and Rhysand, have already had their character arc, they've already developed, they're still having these other little moments. And if you think for a second that I didn't fucking cry when I thought Feyre and Rhysand were going to die, even though I knew, of course, they weren't going to die, there was going to be some way to get around it, I still fucking cried. Of course I did. It was so beautiful. Well done, Sarah J Maas, for making me care about someone who is only in the book for like 9% of the Alright, fuck you. Okay, I was probably ranting a little bit, but I thought it was great. Really, really enjoyed that. I really liked that Elaine kind of is growing strength, but as a background character, wasn't enough more. Where was more? Where was more? And I'm intrigued to see who gets a little love story in the next one, because I kind of think it'll be as real, but I'd love it to be more. Moore and Emery have a little thing going. We all saw that. We all saw that. So yeah, it was great. I gave it 5 stars. I continue to be Mars trash. Okay, so we did better than 4, because I rushed through a few. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. That's an improvement of 3, and I just dropped 1 back in the pot. Yeah, there we go. I finished A Court of Silver Flames yesterday. The great thing about doing a potluck wrap up is that I can wrap up any time of the month. You'll never know. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Links to any of the books that I recommend will be down in the description below, so you can buy those direct from me through Waypoint Books. Please leave a comment about the book that you enjoyed reading the most, and if I spoil A Court of Silver Flames for you, I'm really sorry. I'm genuinely really sorry. I was going to do like a little joke, but I'm genuinely really sorry, because this is the only time ever that I've been able to review a book on time, like before other people, because usually I'm about 3 years late. Indeed. So, yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this content, and I'll see you next time. Have a nice day.